Oh boy, here we go again. We're talking about Chabuduo culture in China today. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Chabuduo, it is a Chinese term that translates to close enough or almost there. But what does that really mean? Well, in China, Chabuduo is more than just a phrase. It's a way of life. From construction workers to chefs to businessmen, many people in China embrace the Chabuduo attitude, where precision and attention to detail take a backseat to speed and convenience. But where did this cultural phenomenon come from? The origins of Chabuduo can be traced back to China's unique social and economic history. For many centuries in the past, China was a place of relative scarcity, where resources and time were both in short supply. In this context, the Chabuduo mentality emerged as a way of coping with these limitations, where good enough was deemed to be better than nothing at all. In this episode, we'll dive deeper into the concept of Chabuduo and explore its various manifestations in Chinese society. We'll examine its impact on everything from product quality to the service industry. So buckle up and get ready to explore the fascinating world of Chabuduo culture in China. Welcome to China University. This is Chimsy, your student advisor. In this podcast, I will not only talk about the many professional, academic, and personal growth opportunities this country has to offer, but also I'll mention some of the major obstacles foreign students encounter while living in China. I'll share my experience, thoughts, and opinions along with some realistic advice and genuine encouragement. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this episode to help this podcast become more relevant and reach more people. You can listen to full episodes on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcast, in where you can find me as China University Student Advisor. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as China University Podcast, and on Twitter as China Uni Podcast. Alright, let's do it. What the hell is Chabuduo culture? Seriously, if you spent any time in China, you've probably heard the term Chabuduo thrown around a lot. But what does it mean exactly? Well, in its simplest form, Chabuduo translates to close enough or about right. But it's more than just a phrase, in my opinion. It's a way of life in China. From construction workers to chefs to office workers, the Chabuduo mentality is ubiquitous. It's not hard to see why. China is a massive country with a population of over 1.4 billion people. With such a massive population, there's a constant pressure to get things done quickly and efficiently, even if it means cutting corners. And that's where Chabuduo comes in. Instead of striving for perfection, many people in China are content with getting things close enough. However, there's a downside to the Chabuduo mentality. By selling for close enough, many people in China miss out on the benefits of striving for excellence. And I know that foreigners have a problem with that, and even Chinese. But overall, Chabuduo is a fascinating concept that is deeply ingrained in Chinese culture. And whether you love it or hate it, it's part of everyday life in China. Now, if you're planning to study or live in China for a long time, this is something that you will have to get used to. Like I said just now, Chabuduo culture is deeply ingrained in Chinese way of life, and it's not something that you can easily escape. It's important to understand that while Chabuduo may seem frustrating or inefficient to outsiders, it actually plays an important role in maintaining harmony and avoiding conflict in Chinese society. So, it's worth taking the time to appreciate the cultural significance of Chabuduo and to learn how to navigate it in your own daily life in China. Now, when it comes to the pros and cons of Chabuduo culture in China, let's talk a little bit about that. China's Chabuduo culture has its pros and cons, and it's crucial to understand them when dealing with Chinese individuals or businesses. Let's take a closer look at the advantages and disadvantages of this cultural mindset, as well as some case studies. Advantages of Chabuduo, let's talk about that. Look, the Chabuduo culture in China allows for a great deal of flexibility and creativity. This way of thinking means that tasks don't necessarily have to be completed to perfection, and instead people can focus on finding solutions that work well enough. This approach can result in a more relaxed and less stressful working environment, which can be conducive to creative thinking and problem solving. And also, it can allow individuals to complete tasks more quickly and efficiently without getting bogged down in minor details. I can see why something like that would be crucial in any organization. One thing that I really appreciate about China is the convenience and speed at which things can be fixed, like for example, cell phones and laptops and e-bikes and bicycles and even clothes, shoes, and umbrellas. You can find repair shops and services just around the corner. This is especially impressive considering the decline in craftsmanship in many other countries where it can be increasingly difficult to find any reliable repair shops. Take my umbrella for example. I purchased a high quality umbrella 4 or 5 years ago. But after enduring multiple typhoons, some damage and oxidation, it began to fall apart. And one day I stumbled upon a repairman on the street who was specialized in repairing umbrellas and handbags. So random. But I brought my umbrella to him and man, within 20 minutes, he had turned it into a bit of a Frankenstein monster, but it was perfectly functional once again. And the best part, the repair only cost me 10 yuan, which is just a little less than 1.5 US dollars. Man, think about it. What could you get repaired for 1.5 US dollars in your country? Probably not much. Maybe, I don't know, a pen, a nail clipper, or a bottle opener. So if you need something fixed in China, you're in luck, I'm telling you. Now, when it comes to disadvantages of Chabuduo, I think that Chabuduo culture can have negative consequences. That's undeniable, particularly when it comes to quality control and efficiency. This way of thinking often leads to cutting corners, right? Which can lead to lower quality work and lack of attention to detail. In turn, this can result in negative outcomes such as missed deadlines or costly mistakes. Apart from that, this approach can create frustration and confusion for those who value precision and consistency, which I assume is 99% of the people in this world. If you are planning to live in China, Chabuduo-ism is something that you have to be prepared for. This Chabuduo mindset won't change anytime soon, but only because it won't change soon, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't demand a good service. I have witnessed countless examples of Chabuduo culture in action, both positive and negative. And as I said before, on the positive side, some Chinese clerks can offer innovative solutions to complete tasks quickly, which can be a godsend if you're pressed for time. But there are also instances where Chabuduo has resulted in shoddy craftsmanship and lack of attention to detail, leading to foreigners venting their frustrations on expat groups on WeChat, Reddit, and Facebook. Even though most of my experiences with products, customer service, and repairs in China have been successful without any significant issues, I could fill an entire book detailing the times I had to deal with mediocrity. I won't delve into each situation, but here are some honorable mentions. One time, my shower floor started cracking, and the property manager told me to wait until it completely breaks before filing the report to fix it. Okay, in the meantime, they covered the cracks with the same thing they used to stick window panels together. I don't know how to call that thing. You let me know. But a month later, the floor finally cracked, leaving a deep hole with sharp ceramic edges. When I showed the photos to the property manager, she didn't seem to understand how a hole in the shower floor was preventing me from taking a shower. And it was so frustrating. Seriously, I just gave up. But sometimes I wonder if she was purposely wearing me down with counter arguments and questioning so that I would give up on getting the floor fixed. But 3 months later, winter started and the water started stagnating, and there was this awful smell coming from my bathroom. I complained again, and this time they acknowledged the problem, saying they would fix it immediately. I left home. I came back at night only to find out they had simply stuck the broken pieces of ceramic back together with more glue. Jesus, man. 2 days later, the floor cracked again. I tried to meditate my way out of frustration and thought that maybe this was some sort of Saiwan Shima situation. Maybe this was something good. I don't know. Maybe I could have a fish tank in my shower. But a month later, the Saiwan Shima proverb became a reality when I heard a knock on my door. It was my neighbor showing me photos of a massive leak coming from his ceiling. I acted concerned, but deep down I was smirking as I made my way to the property manager's office with my fellow neighbor who was also complaining about the same problem. To make a long story short, they had to pump out the water from the fish tank, destroy the floor, pour cement, and cover it with new ceramics. The second example occurred when I had a pair of sneakers with 2 holes on the vamp. It's also called the toe box. And none of the shoe repairmen nearby were willing to fix them for fear of making the problem worse. But I found a store on Taobao that is specialized in fixing running shoes, and their previous repairs looked like high quality work. But even though I requested the guy to reinforce the entire vamp of the sneakers, he said he could only reinforce the part of the vamp that had holes. Even after trying to explain the consequences of not reinforcing the entire toe box, he refused to listen and ignore my request. I had already paid and sent the shoes all the way to a random factory district in Hebei province, and unfortunately, the 10 delivery period referred to a 10-day delivery in Mercury maybe, because it took me almost 1 month and a half to get my shoes back. The repair was pretty good. It was flawless, except that it was not. Just as I had predicted, I had new holes in the parts of the toe box he had not reinforced 2 weeks later. I sent a picture of the holes to the seller to let him know that he had done a Chabuduo job, but maybe that was his plan all along. He asked me to send the shoes again, but I wasn't going to bother this time. Alright, let me think a little bit about the next story. I need to find a way to phrase it without getting sued. Alright, in China, there is a convenience store that shall remain nameless, although I suspect that many of you know which one I'm talking about. On days when I'm not feeling like shelling out for Starbucks, I go for a cheap and decent cup of coffee. However, there's one minor annoyance. China seems to be Karen's training camp with opportunities to become a Karen at every turn. And when it comes to coffee, especially when it's done in a Chabuduo way, I can be a total Karen. I visited several branches of these convenience stores in China, and the clerks have one job when it comes to serving coffee. Pressing a few buttons on the machine, and then the coffee pours out automatically. There's a plastic tube that connects to a bottle of milk inside a tiny fridge next to it, and occasionally the milk runs out naturally, right? Now, this interrupts the coffee pouring process, and despite having seen many employees opening a new bottle of milk and connecting the tube to the new bottle of milk to continue the coffee pouring, many others simply poured cold milk directly into the hot coffee cup. This results in what it tastes like, a leftover coffee maker coffee in the morning, neither hot nor cold, just Chabuduo. When discussing this cultural attitudes towards work, the concept of Chabuduo can be seen as both positive and negative. But on the other hand, it can lead to issues related to quality control and efficiency. For example, the clerks would give me the coffee faster than usual, right? But man, it was so bad. It was not hot or cold, right? If they would have done things properly, it would have taken a little bit longer for them to give me my coffee, right? But inefficient customer service and low-level craftsmanship can be frustrating for some foreigners. I bet many of the foreigners listening to this podcast can relate to what I'm saying. However, the prevalence of the Chabuduo mindset among Chinese people may be due to their accustomed expectations of this type of service. I don't know if the Chinese listeners would agree with this, but anyway, let me know in the comments. This mindset is changing in China. I think that Chinese people are becoming wealthier or more educated, and their expectations are increasing as a result. This is especially true for those who have traveled abroad and experienced a higher level of service. I'm not saying that a higher level of service is the rule abroad. It's important to note that Chabuduo culture exists in other countries as well, as mediocrity is universal. But this doesn't minimize the negative aspects of Chabuduo culture in China, which is also, it's worth pointing out that this podcast focuses on China, and therefore the issues discussed here are specific to China. Anyway, sorry for the awkward disclaimer, but I wanted to say that in case someone tries to pull the "this happens in every country" card. Changing the topic a little bit, I am a loyal Quora user, and I have come across all kinds of questions about China, but 5 years ago, I saw an interesting question about customer service in China. I would read the question and a shortened version of the answer, which I will leave a link in the description of this episode for those who want to read the full version, which I highly recommend. Also, try to read the first comment of the first answer. It's really interesting. Anyway, the question is, why is customer service generally awful in China? Now, let me paraphrase what one of the users answered. Service industry employees in China often come from rural areas and have limited knowledge and training, which can affect their ability to provide high-quality service. Wait staff in China are typically passive, and customers are expected to get their attention when needed. The pay for service industry jobs in China is low, turnover is high, and there's no tipping, meaning that there's no motivation. Next one, Chabuduo-ism, or the attitude of close enough, is a mindset that can affect the quality of service. Service training can be lacking due to a lack of qualified trainers and a view of service staff as replaceable. Margins are thin in the service industry in China, and customer loyalty is low, which can lead to a reluctance to give freebies or refunds. China is what sociologists call a low-trust society, which can lead to suspicion of customer complaints. I'll leave a link in the description of this episode regarding low-trust and high-trust societies. We have reached the part of this podcast in where I give you some realistic advice and genuine encouragement. Number 1, be patient. Remember that Chabuduo-ism is deeply ingrained in Chinese culture, and changing it will take some time as Chinese expectations grow higher and higher. I know it's really hard to keep it cool when you have to deal with inefficiency or mediocrity, and that you have the right to demand good services and good products, but you also have to be realistic and learn to negotiate with yourself and with others when it comes to getting what you want and what you need. Number 2, be specific. When given instructions, be as specific as possible to avoid any misunderstandings. Seriously, you gotta say exactly what you want and exactly what you don't want. Don't assume that people will know what you're expecting. Number 3, be respectful. Remember that service staff are often overworked and underpaid, so be patient and respectful in your interactions with them. Remember that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Let me say that again. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. I think that after so many years of living in China, I am numb to most of the BS and inefficient practices I stumble upon from time to time. But sometimes I can get angry. And like a taxi driver in China once told me, some staff members, clerks, and other workers will deliberately put obstacles in the way to make things difficult for you. This is plain and simple work avoidance or refusal to work. And on top of that, according to our fellow taxi driver, some of them have this 欺软怕硬 mentality, which is a proverb that translates to bully the weak and fear the strong. And unless you yell at them and make a scene, they won't get things done for you. So even though sometimes you have to get visibly angry with business owners or workers to get things done in China, it should be the last resort. If not, it should be avoided at all costs. It's better to get things done by fair means. Number 4, I know I'm going to come across as cynical for saying this, but most people know what they're about, meaning that they are fully capable of recognizing mediocrity and perfunctory service. But they've probably never been called out before. Some sellers and business owners will provide this low quality service or product in hopes that you won't notice or complain. So provide feedback. That's so important. If you have a negative experience, provide constructive feedback to the establishment so they can improve. Don't give a 1-star review. Don't be that person and said what went right and what went wrong, especially if you plan to be a repeat customer. But of course, some business owners or managers are unreasonable and are hypersensitive to criticism and won't welcome any negative feedback. Needless to say, this type of business usually thrives on information asymmetry and an endless supply of new customers that only a populous country like China can offer. Most of the time, this type of businesses focus on looking for new, clueless, and easy-to-please customers as opposed to focusing on customer retention, return customers, or customer loyalty. Did you catch how I just talked about information asymmetry earlier? This factor, in my opinion, is what perpetuates mediocrity in some industries in China. If you're not sure what that means, I'll link a resource in the description of this episode that will explain it better. But basically, it happens when one party in a transaction has less information information than the other. Like, say you want to buy a secondhand car, but you don't know anything about cars. You're probably going to end up with a four-wheeled lemon. That's why in China, I always check out customer reviews before buying anything or visiting any place. But I don't bother with the 5-star reviews, I'm telling you right now. Especially if they come with a bunch of fancy photos. Those are usually fake or paid reviews in my opinion. Instead, I sort them to show the lowest and most recent reviews. If the comments seem legit and talk about actual issues with the product or the service and not the delivery, for example, and most importantly, the comments don't sound unreasonable or unrelated, then I'll just trust the business. And that's also a good way to keep your expectations in check. Alright, I always like to finish my episodes with a quote, and today's quote is by an unknown author who said, "Mediocrity is the result of settling for what's easy instead of striving for what's possible." Let me repeat that. Mediocrity is the result of settling for what's easy instead of striving for what's possible. Alright, that's it for today. Next time I'll talk about sense of belonging in China, because understanding the cultural factors that contribute to one's sense of belonging is essential for anyone who wants to live, work, or study in China, and it can make a significant difference in the experience of being in this country. But before I let you go, don't forget to like, comment, and share this episode to help this podcast become more relevant and reach more people. You can listen to full episodes on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, where you can find me as China University Student Advisor. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as China University Podcast, and on Twitter as China Uni Podcast. You have just listened to Chimsy, your student advisor. See you next time.